This pocket here for the fuel filler has some rust. So before it gets any worse, we're gonna pull it apart, clean it, and put it back together. And maybe some other stuff if we got time. So keep watching. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Block Garage. I'm Brian. And like I mentioned, we gotta do some work right here on this pocket where the fuel filler neck is. As you can see, there's a bunch of rust in here at the bottom. I think it originally started in between this panel and the quarter panel, and then just spread from there because there's nothing anywhere else. And that's usually where you get issues, right? When you got two panels touching, and you get any sort of moisture in there, and it's got nowhere to go, and it's going to rust. You know, seam sealer can only do so much. So we need to pull this out, and it looks fairly easy. I believe, looking from the inside, which we got good access from the inside, it's just spot welded on, just like everything else. I think we can just drill out the spot welds from the inside and pop it off. We should be able to just clean up all that rust. I don't think there's going to be any fabrication involved. I don't 100% know yet, obviously, until we get it apart. But it looks promising. So yeah, then we'll prime it and weld it back in and be good to go. Should be a short project, so if it's as short as I'm anticipating, we'll probably jump on something else. We might do some rust around the hatch because we got some up here that we've talked about in previous videos. But we're gonna jump right in. We're gonna get this popped off, see what it looks like, and go from there. So as you can see, like I mentioned, it's spot welded on the back here. We got a bunch of seam sealer all around it, but the bottom edge here, you can see it's pretty rusty. We're gonna get that off. I'm gonna clean the seam sealer up first, probably get that right out of the way so we can see everything. But before we get to that, there's a bunch of sand in here from me sandblasting. I'm gonna go vacuum that up real quick. And that leads me into something else that I dealt with yesterday. So as I've been going along with the car, I haven't bothered painting everything, just been leaving it bare metal. My theory was, or reasoning for doing that, was because I figured everything has to be cleaned up anyway before it gets painted. You know, no matter if it got a light surface rust on it, or if it had some rattle can primer on it, everything had to be cleaned up before I epoxy seal it and everything. So I left everything bare metal for the most part. Terrible idea. And the reason is, my theory was correct. You know, areas like this up here, that are nice and flat, all smoothed out and everything, they were super easy to clean up. Took a cleanup disc on my die grinder, cleaned it right up. I was able to throw some primer on it. However, it was not all that easy everywhere. So areas like this where it's all welded, or here where it's welded, I didn't grind it fully smooth. I left, you know, a little rough surface there. I couldn't clean that up with a cleanup disc because it doesn't get down in these little ridges right here, or actually be a valley, right? But it doesn't get down in there anyway. So I had to sandblast that. And I had to do a lot more than just there. You know, basically everywhere there was a weld, all these areas in here I couldn't clean up. Down in here, you know, all this stuff here, it had all flash rusted. Which obviously it's going to. I just under anticipated how hard it was going to be to clean it up. So I spent, you know, half the day yesterday just cleaning that stuff up so I could get some primer on everything and we don't have to worry about it. But it's gotten humid lately. It had been fine, you know, all winter. But now that it's humid, everything rusted. So anyways, I got it all cleaned up. It was absolutely terrible. I had so much sand in here. I swept up, I don't know, a ton in here this morning when I cleaned up. But we're good to go now. I'm just gonna prime everything as we go, and hopefully we don't have to worry about that again. But let's vacuum that out and get that seam sealer off, and then we'll get started. Well, I got what I can see drilled. There's quite a bit accidentally went through right here, but whatever, we'll fill that in. There's got to be more down here where the rust is. I just can't see them, so I'm not just going to drill randomly, right? So we're going to try and pop that off, see how well we did with the drilling, and get the ones that obviously I missed. It's moving now. Just get in underneath it. And obviously I'm trying to be careful. We don't want to destroy this thing because we're going to be reusing it. A way to know you're through is if you can see over here. Now that I've got this side definitely loose, there's actually a little bit of gap. It's kind of popped up off, and if you find a way to, you know, with anything that you're drilling spot welds on, if you can flex it like that, you know, I can see it moving, and then you can just look to see where it's not flexing away, which right down here, that one's not all the way through, so we know we got to do some work there, and probably on this one too, I'm guessing. Yeah, let's keep going. And I am trying not to go all the way through. Ooh, look at that. There actually was no spot welds down here. I wonder why. But yeah, there was quite a bit of rust in between there. See it down there? That definitely would have become an issue in the future. We definitely don't want rust appearing there after we painted the car. So let's get this cleaned up, both of these, and see what condition the metal is in and move forward. I don't know why, but they've got a second panel on here, maybe for strength for some reason. The gas door hinge does bolt right here on that housing, or the piece we just took off. So maybe they needed extra strength here. It looks like we've got a spot weld here and a spot weld here that have to come off, and then this will pop off. We definitely want to take this off because you can see there's some rust in between right there. Actually, I think there's a third one right here too. Well, that stuff's pitted enough that we do need to sandblast that. So you can see there's quite a bit of pitting in it. It's still solid, it seems, but I can't fully clean that up with just a cleanup disc or anything. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to sandblast. Not very fun, I'm not looking forward to it, but we'll get it done. It's definitely gonna be less than I had to do yesterday. But yeah, we'll clean up both sides of this with the sandblaster everywhere that I couldn't get. We'll clean up all the rusty bits on this too, although there's not very much on that. There's a little bit. And then over here, we got to clean up down there too with the sandblaster. But really it shouldn't be that bad. So let me get all my stuff on and we will get that sandblasted. Oh, by the way, for anybody that hasn't seen, this is what I've been using for a sandblaster. It's just a little mini one that I got from Harbor Freight. It's like 15 bucks, something like that. It doesn't hold that much sand, but for especially stuff like this where I don't have to do much, it's way easier than getting out the huge sandblaster. And you know, it's just way more convenient. So I'm gonna use this thing. Like I said, it's like 15 bucks at Harbor Freight if you want one. Let's get to it. Well, I got it pretty clean. I would have had to spend a lot more time than I did to get all these spots of rust out. When it's really pitted and the rust is kind of like thick and hard, it doesn't want to come out very good with the sandblaster. But we got most of it off. I'm gonna attempt to clean it up here with my die grinder just a little more, just to see what it does. We'll go from there. All right, change of plans. I was trying to justify just leaving this as it is and just throwing it back in. I don't know if you can see. It's still pitted. It's not through or anything. And that is the same case for over here. You know, it's pitted. And I'll show you the outside, the other side. I cleaned off the paint on the outside and it's also not pitted or anything. I tried to justify to myself just leaving it like that. Probably will be fine. You know, we'll put some rust encapsulator on it, but fuck that. We try to do everything right here. So I'm gonna cut that out. It's gonna be a lot more work than I planned, because then we gotta do some fabrication. I guess we do it every week anyway, but I gotta cut that out. I gotta cut this out and remake this, and then we'll put it back together. So let's get started with that. And this is what the outside looks like. See, there's absolutely nothing wrong here. But you gotta remember how thin this sheet metal is, and it's already pitted on the inside. I'd rather just take care of it now, I guess. Yeah. You know what the worst part of doing this now? I just wasted all that time sandblasting this stuff. Got dirty for nothing. Whatever, let's move on. I'm gonna start by remaking this piece here instead of the car body first, just because I've got that piece, the quarter panel on the car, absolutely perfect. So I want to cut this out, remake this to fit the quarter panel, and then when we cut the quarter panel out, we can make it to fit this, so we know everything's as straight as it can be. By the way, it's 4th of July weekend, so there's a lot of traffic going by. I apologize for the background noise. There's nothing I can do. Now this right here is why I don't throw away any of this scrap sheet metal. This was part of the right rear lower quarter panel that I got from Classic Fab. My piece right here, I'm gonna put it, we got a bend right here. This would have been the bottom of the quarter panel, sits just like this. So we got a bend down there. I am gonna use that right there. And then basically free sheet metal. I do have to bend that a little bit more. This is almost 90 degrees. I could get my brake out. I think I'm just gonna put a couple pieces of angle iron in the vise over there. There we go, got that piece all made up. It is very, very similar to the piece that was on there. I did have to put a slight curve in it this way. This edge meets up with the quarter panel. It has a slight curve to it. I used my shrinker here that I got from Harbor Freight. Very easy to do. I would highly suggest you get that set of shrinker and stretch if you're doing any sheet metal work. It's very, very useful. The only other thing I had to do to it was put a little step in it right here. Probably not showing up great, but the way I did that is once I had it all formed, I just put my piece of angle iron on the vise here with a slight step in it. This one is raised just a little bit higher than this one, basically the thickness of the sheet metal. And then I clamped this on here like this, and then I took an old chisel and flattened the end of it off and used that to basically punch down in there right at that point where those are stepped, and it made a nice step in it. Works very good. So it's fitting very nice in here. We can tack it on, and we might have to do a little bit of forming around this edge here because it's not perfectly flat. But I think we can manage that. I just went and test fitted this in the car. Fits perfectly, so let's get it all welded up and ground down and looking nice. Now this I probably could get away without using the air to cool it off, but I don't want this to warp and not fit as good as it is right now. It's not a piece that's seen, but I still think it'd be better to use this and cool everything off. That way we don't have any warpage. There we go. Got it all done, ground down, smoothed out. Looks very nice. I'm very happy with it. I even put the little flange around the edge like was originally there. All right, now that those pieces are all ready to go, let's get this cut out. We're basically just gonna cut out right here. Leave as much material as we can. Yeah. So I forgot to hit record, but there's our piece. Came right out. All right, for our piece here, we got this little flange, and I'm going to attempt to form that in our new piece of sheet metal. I've got 2 pieces of angle iron set up here, and on this one here, I ground down the edge to round it off so it about matches the shape of this, because this is not perfectly square bends. It should be easy to form that lip. The only problem is, because of where the rust is back here, I had to go up around where it starts to curve up on both sides, so our line's not perfectly straight all the way across. You know, it is for the majority of it, and then it curls up on the ends. So I think, well, I know that I'd be able to get this flange. Just gonna have to figure out how to get it to curve up on the ends after, but let's get the straight bend first, and we'll go from there. Yeah, I'm not having any luck with that. I got it to bend. I got a decent flange on it. But even matching this up as good as I could to this height so that, you know, this would be the same, it still is off. I think it's going to be easier for me to just make this out of 2 pieces. I'll make just this outside flat piece here, and then we'll make the inner piece here with a lip, and I'll just form it with my, you know, the rounded lip with my grinder. I used my gas door, just stuck it on there like that to trace my body line right there, approximately where it's going to be. So we're going to trim that off real quick. Now we got that all lined up nice. We got to make this flange piece right here, and I can probably just use this piece we tried to bend up before. It's already got a rounded type of flange on there, something like that, and we'll just have to shape it still to get it to fit right. I just trimmed one side of that panel off we tried to bend before, so we're left with this nice round edge on there, and I trimmed the ends off so that it somewhat right size. The only thing is down here on each end, like I said before, it starts to curl up, and I'm not sure that I could get that to bend properly and not mess everything else up. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do a little relief cut on the back edge there on each side. then I can do what I want with these ends and we'll just weld it back together. We're gonna have to do a bunch of welding anyway to get everything fit together. So it really doesn't add that much work. And I believe that I can get a better product if I do it this way. So just like that, now we got them curled up. Obviously they're not the right shape just yet, but we can make it the right shape in the car. All right, with this all ready to go at this point, our lip is too big right here. So what I'm gonna do is just stick this in here and get it lined up. Something like that. We'll just trace along the bottom. Got that all trimmed down. There's barely a lip there. I didn't realize, I guess, that it's that small, but I mean, there's barely a lip. I measured it, the offset though, from here to here, and what I got there, and from here to here is exactly, or essentially exactly the same. So I know it's right. And I did cut those little wings off, or whatever you want to call them, that we had curled up, because I think, you know, they were just getting in the way. Once I got this, have this in place, there's not that much of a gap there. I can fill it. I'm gonna have to do a bunch of grinding here anyway. So it really doesn't add anything, but let's get this piece tacked in place. Now that we've got that in place, let's cut this opening out so that that's out of the way. I just test fitted everything. Everything's fitting great. I put the pocket on the back side. Fits good. The door on the front. My gaps are good all the way around. So I guess that means we're ready to weld it in. Another thing I gotta do while we're here is fill in these holes where I accidentally drilled all the way through with the spot weld cutter. So we're just gonna use a piece of copper pipe that I've squished down on the back side to give it, you know, something to weld against, because it won't stick to the copper. Makes it easier to fill that hole back in. Another good thing about using this copper as a backing is this acts as a heat sink, so we get less heat in our sheet metal, less chance of warpage. It's all fully welded, so now we're going to do a whole bunch of grinding. This part will be easy, right? It's just flat surface, but we're going to have to do some shaping right here to get this nice and curved, bend in just like the rest of it is. See if we can make it looking as OEM as possible. But let's get to grinding. So we're going to attempt to shape this around here. I made this little pattern out of tape matched up to my body line on here on this panel. So it'll give me some sort of visual reference to start from to get it shaped the right shape. I put a black line down here with my Sharpie just to give it some contrast, because, you know, once you got that ground down metal, it all looks the same. Helps me see where that line is. So if we put that back up here, I am very happy with how that's looking. So basically, I just gotta keep shaping a little bit. I gotta take a little bit more off back in here in the back edge, and then this front edge needs to be rounded. And I think I'm going to probably do quick small beads along the back edge so I can get more of a curve back there, because it's kind of square right now. That's just where the welds ended up, but we can tweak that a little bit by filling it in. Check that out, got it all shaped in. I am very happy with how it turned out. If you look, I mean, it's set in there anyway, but our gaps look all nice. It's nice and shaped around there. It honestly turned out way better than I expected. So I was honestly pretty negative about how that was gonna turn out, wondering if I made the right decision. I think I did though, now that we got that done. So mostly what I did is I took my die grinder, cut off disc, and just kinda shaped it like this, very slow, very light pressure, and then just took my sanding disc and sanded the edge down out here just to round that edge off. But I think it's close enough to get us to where we need to be that we can finish it off with some body filler once we get to that point. Now we got to put this piece back in. Let's flip the car back over and we'll get to that. I got this little piece in place, the little add-on piece that they had on here. That is right where it wants to go. And part of how I can tell is that's one of the spot welds that I drilled out right there. I can still see the edges of the hole that I drilled. If we stick this on here, and we still have some spot weld holes to line up with this piece too, everything lines up perfect. So I'm going to put some Clecos in here so that we know that this piece goes right back where we want it, because I gotta throw some weld through primer on there, right? And I might not be able to see exactly where that was sitting before. I drilled some holes up here so that we do get some plug welds up here like it didn't have from the factory, and I still haven't figured out why they didn't put any there. Anyways, yeah, let's get those Clecos in. Well, what do you guys think of that? I am very happy with it. So I questioned whether this is the best idea or was the best idea. You know, this was a half-a-day project to start with. Turned into, after all this, a couple days for me. Well behind what I wanted to get done this weekend. You know, I had 5 days off. Holiday Thursday, you know, state government, we get stuff off. So we had 4th of July Thursday. They gave us Friday off. The weekend, and I took Monday off. That's today. Honestly, I was anticipating getting at least 2, maybe 3 videos recorded. It did not happen. But, you know, it is what it is. We just do what we can. Anyways, this gas door here has some rust on it. I contemplated cleaning it up, but I think what I'm gonna do is see if anybody has a clean rust-free door that I can just buy. It'll get better results overall than me either just leaving this like it is, which I'd rather not, or trying to cut all that out, which honestly, I mean, I'm sure it can be done. I'm sure I could get it done. But if anybody has a clean rust-free gas door for an S30, let me know. I'll buy it. I think we're gonna finish the video off here though. I will go throw some primer on that like I said. Let me know what you guys think though, whether this was a waste of time. My opinion, I don't think so. I'd rather do it right the first time than just put some rust encapsulator on that stuff and hope that it never rusted. Probably would have been fine, but I would rather just do it right. So anyways, yeah, let me know what you think and come back for the next video.